Thanks so much for tuning into the Trade Setup. I'm Neeraj Shah. Let's take stock of what the world is up to. It's good going, really. So today it may not be as much of a stock picking opportunity as it is of what the index does. So the global news flow, US inflations run cooler than forecasts, easing the pressure on the Fed. At least that's the belief, as a result of which the US markets did what they did. China's central bank warns of inflation risks as CPI climbs for them. The good news, though, is that China says that the Taiwan military drills are over and plans regular patrols. RBI has tightened norms for digital lending and recovery agents as well. So, from a global or domestic news flow, this is an important piece of development. But largely, as I said, from a markets perspective, what happened to the US markets and what's happening to Asia will dominate trade. So the US markets had a good run. And remember, the markets started higher and stayed higher yesterday in the day. They kind of didn't give up any kind of the gains, and that was actually a positive sign. So good going yesterday for the Dow, S&P, and the Nasdaq. In terms of other cues, well, of course, Bitcoin and Ether and some of the others rallied quite strongly. In fact, Ethereum did even better than Bitcoin. So a bit of a risk-on mood out there. Dollar index is, as per what I read in a note, below the head and shoulder formation. So it's kind of slipped below a key support level. And in sense, if the dollar continues to go down, that's probably might, you can argue, construed positively. The US 10-year yield at about 2.79%, so steady as she goes. The SGX Nifty should be showing an uptick. I didn't check the morning because I didn't need to, frankly. This shows it all, right? 17,748, 201 points higher. Such a strong showing by the markets, really. I mean, from a level of 15,250, 300 to 17,748, that's nearly a 2,500 point move, almost unabated, right? You had a brief here there, 200, 300 points, but never a buckling down. It's just been swashbuckling really by the index. So what's the trade setup? The global uptick will aid sentiment in today's trade. I don't need to tell you that. I think it might aid in the near term as well. So that's part one. And you could argue that at 21 times earnings, the fundamental case for an upside can be limited. But, you know, uh, all quant indicators are getting proven wrong. All resistance levels are getting proven wrong. For now, the market seems to have a mind of its own. BFSI, you could argue now, will be the likely outperformer because, frankly, the one space which is a heavyweight and hasn't quite participated is banks, private banks. And could we now see private banks leading the rally and the other pockets just cool off a little bit? Can happen. Let's wait and watch. Flows continue to be positive, 1,061 crores by the FIs. DIs may have sold 768 crores. Well, DIs are laughing their way to the bank, you would argue, right? Anybody who bought it in the SIP book or otherwise at 15,200, 300 is laughing his way to the bank. So that's great news. What about stocks to watch today? Like I said, index specific day, but still, and theme specific day, but still specific stocks. So Coal India, Q1 numbers, blockbuster numbers, revenues up 9%. But just look at the comparative numbers. Forget what it did, compare it in the last quarter. 35,000 crores done, expectation was 30,000. EBITDA at 12,250, expectation was 8,250. Therefore, margins at a strong 35%, and net profit at about 8,834 crores versus 5,716 crores. Tells you a story or two about how well Coal India has done in the session. Well, in the quarter. E-auction premium for the quarter stood at an all-time high of 201%, which is higher than the consensus estimates of 180%. So really strong show, which came in by companies. And by the way, mind you, viewers, companies across the world are getting rewarded for good numbers. We know what happened with Trade Desk, right? I mean, I was just looking at the numbers, 36% higher. I mean, and quite something. Disney jumped about 6% as well. So good results are getting rewarded, which is a great thing. CLSA has raised the target price on Coal India to 250 from 205 rupees per share. So really strong showing by this one. So going good is what you have to say for Coal India. Metropolis maybe left a bit to be desired. Net profit, in fact, 33 crores versus 40 crores. We know that the diagnostic companies have an issue or two But this one should have been better. Somehow didn't quite turn out that way. 280 crores revenue top line versus estimates of 313 crores. The CEO has resigned. So lots, I mean, and that's kind of known news, but I'm still saying that. So maybe Metropolis has an iffy day, though the market is doing really well, and that might just aid. AARTI Industries, revenue is up 50%, 1972 crores. That's a strong showing. The problem is the EBITDA margin, 19% versus 24%, so 500 basis points crack. But you would argue that AARTI largely did, compared to estimates, I think did okay. The expectations were of margins being even lower. So a lot of issues out there. Actually, sorry, I think we have a bit of a typo there. Maybe the margins are not, AARTI Industries 19%. Yes, 19%. The expectations were about 16, 16 and a half or 17%. So in that sense, I think AARTI is done reasonably well for itself. So do watch out for that one. There is SAIL, of course, on expected lines didn't do well. Revenue is up 17%, but EBITDA margin crack, net profit down 80% at 804 crores. Obviously not a good numbers. There's a query on HEICHER numbers. Well, HEICHER, you would argue the numbers were very poor, right? Sales quarter on quarter were down 24%, YOY down 17%, EBITDA down 62% quarter on quarter. I haven't given those numbers, but just hear me out, viewers. EBITDA margin at 6%, PAT, I mean, there's a loss versus profit. It still trades at a trailing 12 months PE of nearly 30 times. All I would say, Sajju, is that we know that while strong specialty chemical company results are getting rewarded the way Fine Organics was rewarded yesterday, weak ones are getting punished as they should be. And the way Deepak Nitrite was, and I would reckon HEICHER would not be an exception today. So you will see a negative reaction in all probability on HEICHER. I know the stock has come off quite a bit, but like I said, price is one thing, the value is another. At 30 times trailing 12 months for this kind of a performance, maybe I've gotten something completely wrong, but I would reckon that the stock should react negatively today. What else? Some other pieces that I do want to highlight. IRCTC, the results, the Q1 FY23 performance highlights to my mind that most business segments are growing. There is improved profitability metrics. The problem is that the discontinuation of the 2S ticketing volumes will start getting reflected only starting Q2, and therefore the earnings growth or earnings performance ahead is likely going to be muted. That's the issue with IRCTC. Maybe has a pickle to itself. On EICHER, well, I think the numbers were okay, and I just thought I'll get in this note from MOTILAL OSWAL, wherein they are saying that an improving supply side, product launches and ramp up in exports will drive the next phase of growth for Royal Enfield. This, coupled with stable commodity prices, will support margins and drive earnings growth. They maintain their buy rating with a target price of $3,600, which is 24 times, at about September 24 SOTP valuation. So keep that in mind. Some other analyst actions, and then a word on Zensar as well, and then some queries, of course. But first, some analyst actions, largely on the FMCG space. Goldman is active. So ITC was reinstated as a buy, target price 390. Colgate reinstated as a sell, target price 1400. Dabur reinstated buy, Godrej Consumer reinstated a buy, and Marico reinstated a buy at about all those respective prices. So a few things to watch out for. I would watch out, viewers, amongst other stocks for Zensar Technologies. Like I said, Amansa Holdings, a buying stake is important. So of course, they bought it from Bluet as well. But Amansa is a name which evokes response. Akash Prakash, one of the smartest men out there, they bought 3.17% stake at 223. Keep in mind, Zensar is a stock that's corrected quite viciously, and for the right reasons, because the numbers were very poor. But now that Akash Prakash has bought it, he would probably has a bit of a value bent to himself as well. So do watch out for IRCTC, rather Zensar could be an interesting day today for that one. Some queries about Tata Chemicals. Well, I think in some sense, Tata Chemicals numbers came yesterday. So But yeah, they were good numbers. Top line, EBITDA, almost everything did really well. So therefore, no question for why there should be doubts around Tata Chemicals. Very strong show. It's not a specialty chemical company, so keep that at the back of your mind. But yeah, I mean, you know, not bad, you would have to say. There is from amongst companies which should be focused on should also be prestige estates, because most brokerages have given a very good view on prestige estates. So that is something that I would certainly watch out for. For example, let me just quickly tell you, for prestige, Jeffries as a buy, the target price has been raised. CLSA as a buy call, target price raised to 610 from 595. So both of those are okay. HAL, all-time high performance in the quarter. So that is the other one that could do really well. We know some of the defense names have done really well. So do watch out for Hindustan Aeronautics too. And another Mazgaon Dock, highest revenue in the last 11 quarters with very strong margins. So that is something that should be watched out for as well in the session today. Net, good day of trade. Maybe look at the index, look at the bank nifty in particular, I would say, and specific names from the energy side, Coal India, and there is a rub-off effect of everything that has got some piece of coal mining or mining attached to it. So it could be interesting to see what Coal India in particular does, but also maybe something like GMDC or some of the others do in the session today. So do watch out for that. Uh, we have a bunch of interviews lined up today. So if you want to understand, for example, what's happening with the metal space, then Hindalco would be talking to us today. That's a big one. Ramdev Agarwal joins in at India at 75 to talk about how does he see capital markets evolution ahead, rather evolution gone by and the time ahead. So that's it's a different conversation, viewers. Don't tune in if you want stock ideas or investment ideas per se, but really about what can happen and how could growth be. So as I said, a very different conversation, but worth tuning in, I would reckon. So do watch out for that one. Prashant Jain to talk about the latest deal that they've struck. Bharat Puri of Pidilite to come in and talk about the numbers. You know, with Pidilite, the idea is steady as she goes. Almost every single time a quarter's disappointment gets captured again in the next quarter. So won't read too much into what they do on a quarter-on-quarter basis. More like how they expect the year to be is something that you should focus on when it comes to Pidilite, and that's what you will hear at 12:15. I'm waiting to talk to Amit Kalyani. The last time he had spoken about the EV focus, so that's something that we will focus on in this conversation with him, and of course Cyril Shroff in conversation with my colleague Payas Swini, again at the India at 75 special series. So do watch out for that one as well. Lastly, before we wrap up, not knowledge of my own, I'm standing on the shoulders of some of the others, but a lot of queries about whether Tata Steel, SAIL, JSW, or some of the other metal stocks are a buy. I read a piece from Rakesh Arora 2 days ago, wherein he's saying that there is still some time to go before you go out and try and buy into any of the metal names. Maybe tomorrow I'll try and bring some snippets of that onto the trade setup. But for today, thanks so much for tuning in. For all you guys out there, and of course all the women out there, happy Raksha Bandhan. And give your sisters the biggest treat that you can. Thanks so much for tuning in today.